That was crazy.
Good. Well, actually, I should ask what time it is where you're at. Is it evening?
It's 7 o'clock
7 o'clock.
p.m.
All right.
Yeah, yeah.
So good afternoon or evening.
Good
How we
morning
doing
to you.
today?
Oh, good. Oh, good. I'm
Ah,
in Barcelona, actually, coming back from a trade show.
oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it's been a good time.
Those are always fun. They're exhausting.
Yeah,
I am
totally
so
exhausting.
ramped up when I'm there, but I want to like days off of quiet. I need to go
No,
for a walk in the woods somewhere.
yes, no woods here.
No woods here.
No.
Oh, so we're going to talk a little bit about some history of how Domotz came to be and some fun stuff.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'll get going. So the company is actually started in 2015, which seems
10
well,
years.
it's a date. 10 years. Yeah, we just had our 10-year anniversary. It was 1st of January 2015. And actually, my background has nothing to do with Domotz. I was in finance. I was trading. I was a market maker, trading fixed income instruments, watching a screen with like a gazillion numbers every day, trying to spot anomalies so I could make some money. Yeah, I was a little bored in my job, to be honest with you. And the good thing about my job, but then if you actually succeed, it's actually good things come. But the other good thing is that the markets close at 4:15 and in the afternoon, and you get to go home and you get to play. And in fact, you play with your toys. And my toys, to be honest with you, was all my electronics or my computer networks. In my house, I mean, when I built it, I went nuts and I built a server room. I have two 48U racks. I have 16 months of cabling. I think taken down my rack and redone them probably four or five times.
I'm the same way. Then it becomes like a passion project of exactly
Yeah,
how
no,
you want to
it
do it.
is. Yeah, it's
I
just
just finished a project where I obsessed maybe a little bit too much, but every single cable has a label on it. Everything's exactly,
yeah.
I look at it and you go, yeah, that's now I'm happy.
Yeah. I spent a fortune on just the cabling machine. I mean, the machine for like the labels is they cost
Yep.
a fortune, those things. And especially if you're not doing for a living and you're just doing for because.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You have to balance it because there are all these one-off tools that you're like, I'm only going to do this once. So it is. But me working at least in the tech industry, doing some of this, I have access to a lot more of them.
Yeah.
So I can justify a little bit. I do have a job use case for this.
Well, I didn't. I just bought stuff. And so anyway, as I said, in my house, I went nuts. I mean, everything is connected to the network. I have, just to give you an idea, my water valves are IP connected, and my actuators. I have a commercial grade building management system that runs on Modbus, which I bridged into IP, and so I could understand actually what's happening and if I'm going to be taking a shower or not, a warm shower or not, in an hour or so. So I basically have almost probably 350, 400 MAC addresses at home, and it really stems from my curiosity about understanding the infrastructure. I really enjoy, my home, and I treat it as if it was a human being, and I wanted to be, all working and performing at whatever it needs to be doing. And I just connected everything to the network so that I could understand the state, the health, if everything was working. And soon realized that, with one solution brought all new problems because, as we all know, when you start, in networks, rarely everything works smoothly. And frankly, lots of things were not working. And my wife used to call me all the time complaining, this doesn't work and that doesn't work. And I said, I think I need, I looked around. I started seeing these really old style networking systems, and I said, I think the world might just need another one of these. And so that's how I started the company. Essentially, I was trying to solve. Frankly, I didn't start a company. I was just solving my own problem around getting understanding of my IP-based infrastructure. And so at the time, as I said, I had another job, and I used to make money as opposed to kind of investing it in spending it in making companies, in building companies. So I hired 5 engineers, and I designed the product. And and about 8 months later, we went to CES in Las Vegas at the Consumer Electronics Show. And I said, network monitoring for homes, and I put a stupid price. And the next thing I know, I had 500 people stopping at the booth, and we got actually a first client at the time. Then, yeah, I mean, so there it went. I mean, we started getting people, and the company started.
There's different approaches to product, and there's a lot of people who go, I have a business mind, so I'm going to look for problems and try to invent the solution. I think that doesn't always lead to the best products. I think the best products I know are people who go, I had this problem, I had to solve it for me, so I'm going to solve it in the best way possible. And then sometimes either you have the inspiration yourself or someone taps you on the shoulder and goes, I bet other people would like to buy that too. And there's something about that story that I think is better and leads to a better product, because it starts as a passion to solve a actual tangible problem that you understand very well. That's why you're trying to solve it, because you couldn't find anything else in the market to solve it. And I like products born out of that. I've always been often less enthused when they're trying to figure out where's the gap in the market and look for the problem and try to build out a solution. They usually aren't someone who deeply understands the problem, but you deeply understand the problem, which makes for a better product, because you're like, I know exactly what I need to solve.
Yeah, no, I was totally fixated on the problem, and frankly, I still am. And to be honest, it's fascinating building a product, because you put engineers, and you start thinking of functionality, but it really always goes back to providing a solution to a problem. So the product is not the sum of a bunch of functionality. It's what problems you're solving, how you're solving it, and then the functionality becomes at the end. And if you never start a company, it's a lesson that you learn along the way, and it's an interesting lesson to learn.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
and maybe those people with an MBA that are looking for a problem to solve, who have a lot of business skills, they can be helpful in that case. That's where they're often useful, is because even myself, I was like, I'm just going to go fix computers and, turned it into a business. But that's the somewhat easy part. Marketing's hard. Managing people is hard. HR's beyond me. And so, all the things that support a business can be very tricky. But I think the monitoring is getting more and more important. It's still a big growth market, even though the company's been around for a while. You hear this a lot, where people just don't have good inventory. And especially, in security, we always repeat this: you can't protect what we don't know about. How am I supposed to protect it or monitor it if I don't know about it? So I have to first discover all those things attached to my network, because that's how you get blindsided, going, wow, we're secure with everything we know about, but what about what you don't know about?
I think monitoring, a lot of people take it for granted. I mean, it is a commoditized product, to be very honest. But a lot of people, they just put in the back of their mind, and they don't really have a solution. They can check the box because they could do it, but they don't really do it. I mean, still 50% of the time when we are looking, getting a new client or new prospect, we're really fighting against nothing. They don't really have a solution that they are actually really using at a business level in their processes. And I mean, the industry is changing. I think already in the last 5 years, it's changed a lot, because it's becoming more of a basic tech stack that you need to understand the infrastructure you're dealing with. But I think it's still early days. And frankly, the wind is kind of behind us, because, as I said, it used to be, you had an office, you had 10 people, you had 10 computers. And now computers are, on average, at least in our networks, are close to 30% of MAC addresses in an organization, and 70% is something else which has a MAC address. All these things that people just used to just plug in the AC, now they plug into the AC, and then they plug the network cable.
Yep.
And so networks are becoming just more complex.
And
there's a lot
Wi-Fi has created sprawl, where at least I can find all the network ports, because it goes to a switch somewhere. But Wi-Fi has created, I watched and observed. I have separation in my networks, and I was like, what is this new device on my network? And I always like, the humidifier. I'm like, why did you buy a humidifier that connects to the network? Like, I don't feel like this is it just needs to make the humidity, like it's got a knob on it and set, but it has a Wi-Fi app. I'm like, this is, this is why she doesn't have the password to the secure network. She just has the other password so she can connect humidifiers.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting. If you're kind of back to the wind in your sails a little bit on this. We're seeing, and hopefully it keeps progressing, security frameworks becoming more popular that people align to, and the control groups. There's one for inventory management. You have to know what's on your network. What are the devices that you're responsible for? Are they patched and everything else? You have to know about them. So there is at least I see a maturing of the market going, all right, it's not just one person to one computer. I forget the ratio is. Someone had a really good stat I read the other day. I should have saved that article. It was about over time how we've increased per human in a business, how many devices there are. And it's like you said, it's far more than one computer. It's like several for each person, and all, like you said, all the connectivity to anything else, from the thermostat to apparently humidifiers, as I learned. All these things that have to be on your radar for. Are they attached to your network? Do they present a risk? Do they need to be patched, or should it be segmented off? And I need some tooling to figure out, who attached all these.
And traditional monitoring tools, in fact, it used to kill me. I mean, you get an IP address and you're like, okay, what am I staring at? And so when we actually started looking at this, we started creating a layer 2 solution so that we could actually get a MAC address. And then we did a whole bunch of cool things about crowdsourcing this, playing with these MAC addresses, and we became a little bit smarter around understanding how to identify each of these devices. Because once you start understanding a type and model, what is it you're looking at, it's like, oh, okay, that's the humidifier, or this is, that. And as you said, you find out there are things that are just sitting on the network because nobody, turns them off, and this stuff proliferates, and it is a security nightmare because this stuff doesn't get maintained. And it's just dangerous.
I did some work for, I knew the IT people for a local city, and I helped them solve some problems. They had a loop in the network. The loop in the network was from a hub, not a switch. They did not realize that some of this old equipment that was in some of the back rooms was all on. And it was causing some problems because someone had moved something and it turned something else on. It created a loop and it would echo back to the network. And they're like, I'm like, how did you guys not know this? Like, I can't believe these servers still turned on, but someone turned them on and they didn't know who, but no one unplugged them. Someone turned them off when they retired, but no one physically removed them, and they left the hubs plugged in and all the cross connects. And it was cool to see Lantastic again. I was like, Lantastic? This is great that this server turns on. It should be in a museum, but also this is what's causing your problems. This is, that monitoring part is really important. Figuring out when new things arrive on the network, is that represent a change. And kind of my task is, as an IT company, that we do a lot of outside IT managing for clients. We're not there physically, so we have to be aware when there's changes to their network, especially when they make them, because they're not going to ask us if they can plug something in. They're just going to,
they just do it.
They'll just do it. Yeah. Surprise. Oh, schools are the worst because, I mean, you know how many switches I pull out of ceilings? I don't know why. That's like oh, look, we found a plug. We can put it in there. And then there's an extra switch. So they only had one port in the teacher's office. So now the teacher goes, this classroom should have 4. and they don't ask us to put 4 in there. And then we have a problem.
And a lot of times to troubleshoot issues, I mean, if you look at the current state, it's just a very partial view. But if you manage to walk back history and see what actually changed on the network, frankly, that is a lifesaver.
Yeah, the differential, how it was when it was working last to how it is now, and being able to see that. You guys pull all the extra fun stuff, SNMP and everything else. You dig in a little deeper with the tooling to try to pull out of the switches whatever data we can.
Frankly, SNMP is. Dying. I think it's a big word, but every manufacturer is moving towards cloud managed solutions, or at least making their stuff one way or another connected and smarter, even if it's on a local LAN basis. And so one of the things that we did, I was fixated around being able to pull data out of all the assets that I had, starting with the switches and the Wi-Fi access points and everything else, ending with all kinds of other stuff. And so one of the things we did, we created scripting capabilities where we could leverage, and as long as something, these assets talk, whether they have an API, you can SSH into them, they have an HTTP screen that you can pull up. So we created the ability to build a script so that you could take any value that was available, persist it. You could actually push any action so that if you had to do an action, whether it's a config backup or a reboot or anything else, you actually could trigger for the system. But yeah, anyway, I always was fascinated about understanding, and to understand you need to see, and you need to, like time is an important perspective, because I mean, it's not just seeing what's happening right now, it's seeing how things changed over time. I always say that flow is more important than state, and therefore getting the dimension of time in the data that you're seeing is extremely important, and can really help you understand what's happening. And again, there's so much time we waste troubleshooting, that if you can save that 20 minutes or 30 minutes or even 10 minutes, it's just like, okay, you could do now. There's a lot more things you can do in your life than wasting 15 times understanding what the heck is going on.
Yeah, I think it's fun because I almost want to say they're like toddlers, because when you're dealing with, especially we do some co-managed work, and it's always like, I don't know why it quit working. Yes, you do. You change something, you plug. Oh no, we plug nothing in. Yeah. If you don't have the time slice, as I need to look at what it was, because I don't want to spend time sorting out what you did, because you don't want to tell me, you're embarrassed or whatever. I get it. But they never want to come clean. Or they will plug something in. It goes crazy, and then they plug it back in what they think was the right way. And if you have those time series data, like, no, I know what it was on January 30th. I know what it is today, and it's not the same. And now I can unwind what you were doing. I'm not going to blame you. I'm not going to yell at you. I just want this working because I need to close this ticket.
No, it's absolutely true. So it is. I mean, the problem with networking is that we don't know. You need a sixth sense. I mean, you cannot smell it, you cannot see it, you cannot hear it. You need something else. And so, to me, I was trying to be a little more powerful by just enhancing my senses and being able to actually understand what the heck was going on, because otherwise you're lost.
Well, and some of this comes back to often as technicians who just use tools, that we're always the ones shaking our fists angry, going, "Wow, why does it have this information? I know what it looks like now, but now it's not working." I mean, what it looked like before. And I think that's where that comes back to the whole perspective of you were solving a problem that you understood was your problem, leads to those better insights on, someone just going, "Well, we just need to monitor and discover everything," right? Well, no, there's a little bit more to it. There's a little bit more of that has to go on. So what were some of the interesting findings that you've had on network discoveries, on, especially, this is interesting, you have a lot of clients now, so there's always those aha moments you have with clients going, "We thought this would just find this, but it found all of this and you saved us." What are some of those fun stories that you probably have related to that?
Well, to be honest with you, the interesting thing has been a little bit going back to what you were saying before, how even incredibly large companies actually have not like they have a lot less or they're not as equipped as one would think they would be. So we actually got into the in fact there's a lot of IT operations as much as IT network management of some traditionally large companies, like Fortune 500 companies, and I was amazed that, I mean, these guys, again, they're dealing with a whole bunch of architecture which is now on IP, and they get given the Nagios, the Zabbix, and they don't really know what to do with it. And all of a sudden, thanks to something that they can actually use a lot more easily, they start getting an understanding of the infrastructure, and they find all kinds of things on the network. So we have. And that aha moment for people is, I mean, the discovery is actually a huge aha moment, because they're like, I mean, just watching in front of you what you have on your network, it's usually a lot more than what people expect. So that's quite a satisfaction all the time, especially when you get into a big client and you're like, how did you do this before? Like, that's
the large companies are always interesting, and it's, especially as they've aged, so much stuff has like collected, and I don't think they've realized how much technical debt, and the debt comes due, unfortunately, especially when you find you have a security problem. That's when you learn how much technical debt you have.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the other thing that's kind of interesting to me is, like you said, with the tooling, a lot of it has to be tangible for the technicians. I mean, Nmap's been around forever. And so there's a million tutorials on Nmap, but what people start realizing is it's more than Nmap. Nmap's cool, but you have to manually run it. Then you have to figure out what to do with the data that comes out of it. Then you have to figure out how to compare it. And there's always some young, ambitious technician that's going to build the next differential thing in search to Nmap, but it's not as tangible to use. You need a tool that actually works and produces the data. You mentioned Zabbix. I mean, Zabbix is awesome, except until you actually have worked with it, you're like, okay, this needs, before camera, we talked about this. You can't just set something up. It kind of needs, as I always like to say, a lot of care and feeding. It needs aftercare. There's the challenge of getting it set up. You follow the tutorial, great, thumbs up, it works. The dashboard is lit up and you got some devices on there, but the ongoing maintenance of those, there's a cost to it, even though you can say, but it's open source, it's free. Yeah, but your time isn't. It still needs to be maintained to stay functional and secure. So Domotz, I think, take cares a little bit of that.
No, I totally can can relate because yes, there is a lot of tools out there, but as you said, time is extremely valuable. And I mean, there's two components. One, that there are very specialized tools that go very vertically into an element, but ultimately, the job of anybody sitting on, especially first and second line, is that you have to be on 20 different tools, or you have to be horizontal as much as vertical, and then all these things, they need maintenance, and especially in a world where networks are so dispersed, because you start having, I mean, our average client has on the MSP side, they're going to have 20, 30 clients. They each have, each of their clients maybe has 3 or 4, 5 sites, but they're all quite dispersed. And so, it used to be that the job was at a big corporate network, and you could go really deep into it. But now you're dealing with all these different places, small retail, sheriff's offices, churches, all kinds of stuff. I mean, everything is a network today.
Yeah.
So once you do that, maintaining something which is kind of on-prem, self-made, it's just impossible. And so there is that element of making it easy for the maintenance, that people at one point say, you know what, my life is worth more than this, and my time is worth more than this. But the other one is actually also trying to think out of the box. So you're not just doing discovery. You need to do configuration management. You need to link this information and bring it to somewhere else. You need to, ultimately, it's data in, you're processing, you're giving understanding, and then you're creating an outcome. You're creating an action, whether there is a ticket, whether there is an alert, or whether there is something, but it's about pulling it together. So it's not, when you think monitoring, is not like just a scan.
Right.
It's not, and even just storing it so you give a historical perspective, is really trying to figure out how, we can save time getting to the objective, which is solving a problem, hopefully before the user actually realizes there is a problem. So that's what it's about.
Well, in the integrations, you can't build a silo of data, and an Nmap script and exporting it to XML is all fine and dandy, but it's still a silo. It's that integration, especially things like monitoring doesn't mean letting me know. It means letting the systems know. So as like an IT provider, MSP, we have a ticketing system. We have to look at things and how they integrate into that, because I have to know something changed. I can't go seeking the data. I want the data to be pushed to me or pushed to a system to consolidate it so we can get those notices. And, you kind of touched on it, but the documentation part, cool, I have a map, but that's a cool map of the network. That's by far not the only documentation I have. I have to know a lot else about their network. So having, some of the integration to build into pushing that data into my documentation system is important. I mean, we can copy and paste all day, but that's prior to 2025. Like, we should in 2025 have proper, modern, automatic documentation systems. Essentially, building your automation around documentation is huge if you want to scale. I mean, if you're a small couple people managing a network, sure, but that doesn't scale to the MSP side at all. That this is not a fit. If you want to do this well, and that's what we have, is a lot of integration of tools.
I mean, to be honest with you, and I've discovered this, like when you start a business, you start, well, at least if you start from zero, i.e. from the basement, it's more like an artisan job. I mean, it's a custom job. And then you realize eventually that I mean, if you are actually turning it into a business, and by the way, it took us years to take this into a business. I had no idea what I was doing, but for years. I mean, the company started in 2015.
I feel that.
I think we probably became a real company in 2019 when we actually started understanding, business processes and flows, and had a minimum commercial model. I mean, so it took a while, but eventually, I think this is for anybody. I mean, it's for us as a company at Domotz, is for somebody running an MSP business, is really building business processes, and it's rinse and repeat at scale. And so you got to think how, we all have limited resources, and the biggest limited resources is time. And so for the same unit of time, you got to increase your productivity to the wazoo. And so that's how, by scaling those business processes, as you actually turn it into a real business. And so, we ultimately, what we do, we try to facilitate that and make people more knowledgeable, more powerful, more capable of actually doing more in the unit of time that they have. But I mean, I'm learning this lesson in our own business. I'm trying to business process everything. In fact, I love all this AI that's coming out, because it actually forces you even to explain it to the AI. You have to make sure you divide in business processes, and you explain it very well. So it's fascinating, to be honest with you. It's quite interesting.
Yeah, figuring out exactly how to build that automation sounds simple, but it has to align with your business goals as well. So it's not just the automation, it's how does this align? How do we do it? And of course, as an IT company, I got to bill for it. So I have to figure out, I'm monitoring all this, and I have to build some automations around it, build it serviceable, and then create a process by which I can bill and service this for the client. Because I mean, we all like playing with technology, but eventually someone's got to pay us.
Yeah, no, it's yeah. I mean, unfortunately, I don't have a huge amount of spare time, and I still love just building things and playing as much as I can. But a lot of the playing now is around how to structure things, and as I said, make it repeatable.
Yeah.
And scale.
So let's pivot a little bit. Where do you see some of this working in the home? Because home users now are attaching. I meet some of them through, because I talk about Homelab a lot, that are attaching tons of devices. What do you think of that, of how things are changing to where at home? I mean, there's just not just humidifiers and toasters, but a lot of things that are actually useful are attached to my network now.
I can tell you they're actually network connected toilets. So, I mean, there is, there's some much weirder stuff that is connected, which, we can definitely don't need to talk about. But
wasn't that what CES was? What weird things can we connect to the internet? We're just going to put the internet. Well, actually, no, they wanted to stick the internet in an AI and everything. Like my toaster needs to have an AI imaging thing to figure out what my toaster look like, I think.
But on the other hand, anything that is connected is by definition smarter, because even take whatever, even a smartwatch, when you put it in, it doesn't need to learn from you, because by being on the wrist of another 4, 10, 20 million people, statistics tell you that they already know 90%, and so they can identify essentially what to expect, and then they can be smarter. So this all connected. I mean, I think it's a bit BS for a lot of products initially. Yeah. But if for those companies that actually they invest in this and they have smart people on the data mining side, it actually ends up providing a lot more value out of the product itself, in the usage and in what to expect. I think there is, connectivity is not enough, but it's definitely, giving more value to users and to people.
I like, I think it's probably the nature of people in tech when things get gamified a little bit. And about 2 years ago, I bought a Garmin watch, and I was skeptical. My wife got one first, and she's like, "Don't you want to watch?" I'm like, "I don't need an electronic to teach me around," but I'm happy with it now, because it reminds me to complete more steps each day and do workout more and things like that. But I've now done it so much, it figures out your age, and it says your age based on how you work out. It reduced it. Yeah. And I'm younger now. It let me know the other day. So now I'm happy with it again. But I think there is something kind of cool about it, because I've now tracked my sleep cycle with it. I make sure I get enough exercise because, you get fascinated with the keyboard too long, you don't get up. So I actually see that as a useful technology. And it even has move reminders. It lets me know you have been here too long. You should go for a walk. And I just get up and go for a walk a little bit. I've been trying to listen to the watch. And
what's really bad when it starts saying, like, you're not sleeping enough, like, and then it's like, 3 hours, this can lead to serious damage. And I'm like, okay, like, I just gotta finish this. So, don't bother me.
So I'm not down on all of it. Sometimes I think it's useful because our bodies weren't made to probably sit in front of keyboards as many hours as we do. But get out there and it actually probably helps with our decision. I've at least heard it helps with our decision making to stop looking at the problem for a little while and go for a walk. So there's a plus on the on there.
Going back to your question, so no, I'm from Sicily. I have, a couple of places that I don't actually get to go that often. So I like feeling connected by putting connected stuff, and at least I can see the camera, I can see this, I can see that. So I've been playing. There's a lot of stuff happening in AI, in vision, AI vision. So things you can do to understand, kind of detect objects, what's happening, and you can play with the stuff. Like I have some Hikvision cameras. That there's a lot of stuff that you can play with. I've been playing. There's I don't know if you know. There's like Dante, which is basically a new protocol for streaming audio, and now actually doing video over IP. And so you have Dante connected speakers and Dante this and Dante that. So I'm playing with that. I like distributing audio and video everywhere I can. I don't know why. I have one piece of technology that I love, which is not connected. I have these invisible speakers that actually they go behind the plaster, so they work off diffusion, not by sending air. I don't think a purist for speakers. I think they probably balk at this, but I think they sound amazing. And the funny, you can't see anything, and the people that actually come in and listen to the music is like, where's it coming from? It feels like the whole room is just singing. So that's something that.
But that's really cool. I remember when I first learned about like the Martin Logan ones. That's a very different concept as well, like how they move with electrostatic to make the noise. You've seen those, haven't you? Yeah. It's very. I like the innovation around it. I know the sound purists just want larger speakers, but I'm not that person. I'm like, show me something cool, a little innovation around it. That's I think that's really cool.
There's a lot of cool stuff, and then every time I come to these shows, there's a lot of stuff happening in the booth. But I like walking around, trying to understand, what else is new. Now, actually, I'm trying to get. We're trying to set up a conference room in our offices in Domotz, and I wanted to put some Zoom rooms or some Teams room, and I've been looking at all this. You can choose there's 150 different solutions for cameras that really are. I'm not sure they're quite inexpensive, but it's amazing. The camera actually divides the screen. They run AI. They take every picture of every person. It's like you feel like being in presence with these people, and it's quite amazing.
Yeah, we have it in our conference room at work, and I love the fact that it figures out who's talking, and then it locks into that person. It's creepy but good. Like I like how it works, and it's just it gives you a different feeling. You wouldn't think of a traditional conference room like this. Here's like 8 people sitting around a table staring at it, and everyone sounds like they're talking into a box, and it's terrible. It's always how it used to be, and now it's like the sound quality is great. It's got several microphones that we set on the table. It's got the camera that figures out who's talking and zooms in and crops into their picture. I'm like, okay, this stuff has gotten really advanced. It's so nice. It's inexpensive is a relative term, but boy, I like it as a gadget.
Yeah, and then I like. I don't know. I always. In fact, I don't store. I hear you store petabytes of data. I'm not sure my storage needs are anywhere that close, but I like playing with NAS. I have a QNAP, I have a Synology, and these things have become. You can run VMs on them. They have stores you can download all kinds of software and try it out. Actually, if you like self-hosting, that's. It's a recipe for disaster because the stuff eventually, potentially opens up to all kinds of attacks. But you can spend days or weeks. I usually do that, Christmas break. That's what I do. But
yeah, I think there's some value in it though for people that feel like they're getting a little bit subscriptioned to death. The consumers are, and I don't think they're wrong. Sometimes it turns into maybe I should be able to do this, but to the same extent, they have to be very conscious. And I think Synology, as I'm familiar with their ecosystem, at least maybe QNAP does something similar, but Synology's done a good job with like their C2s. I set my friend up. He's less tech. He works in sales, but he's somewhat techie, and he loves this Synology. He's got his photos backed up to it, his documents backed up to it, and he has the Synology offers like a service to buy a subscription to have a whole backup of your Synology. So, because he's like, I know I need to back this up. Like he's not technical enough to know exactly how to do that, and he goes, I don't want to buy two of them because what if something happens at the house? And I'm like, hey, you just click C2 Synology and magic. I think there's a big market where we're going to see a lot more. People having some control over. I mean, you can surrender everything to Google or Apple if you want, but they're not always the best stewards of our data.
Yeah. But I mean, in fact, even more than on the personal side, there's a lot of business applications on these things. I mean, even if you want to run a syslog, or if you run your own database, or I mean, there's a lot of, there's a lot you can get, a lot of value you can get. The problem again is always time, because it's easy to build stuff. It's not easy. It's fun, and it's solving a problem. It's always a challenge, which is fun to solve. But then you got to maintain it, and it's the maintenance that is killing. I mean, it's time, because everything requires time. So if somebody else can do it,
I think Synology
it may be worth the money.
Yeah, Synology does a decent job of when you walk through the wizard, the modern version, the latest one. I think the default checkbox is auto update all critical packages, which is great because no one will set these up and update them. And Unify has taken the same stance with all of their equipment. Anything since they're on version 9 now, but all their version 8 software, I believe, is when they started doing this. 100% auto update is checked. You can go uncheck it, but it defaults. And most people are always, the joke is the tyranny of the default. Everything's always left at default. So if you don't have good defaults, you won't have good security. So Unify says, you know what? We don't want to be in the news for this. So we're going to have that auto update box checked. They have to go in 3 menus deep to uncheck it. And only those technical people like me or you will do it. The average person that said, next, I want my thing to work. They've got it checked. It's a better posture for security.
I'm a Racus fan.
Okay.
I put Racus, I don't know. It's just, I always had Wi-Fi problems, and ever since I tried that, I mean, we have, to be honest with you, it's impressive actually, the market share, the ubiquity it's got. We see it from our own data. But yeah, I don't know, you get used to something, and I just got stuck in it. But every time, if we, whatever, I buy a house or build a house, the first thing I do is put internet. The next thing, Racus goes in, and then I start figuring out how I can build a rack and all the other systems. But
the thing I recommend to people is, we were just having this discussion today at work because we're training people on new things. We don't just throw, hey, you're going to use this new product. It comes down to labs and training, because even if a product may have a superior advantage over another, the best product is the one the tech knows how to set up. Because if they set it up wrong, no matter how good the product is, setting it up wrong does not leave them better off. It's going to cause more problems, especially if they, open up the firewall with the wrong ports on it. That may have happened it was on the lab, so nothing dangerous, but you're like, guys, I don't think you were supposed to expose the management interface. Well, we didn't know that would do that. Well, that's why we have training, and that's why we have labs.
Yeah, in general, having a strategy in these things is very advisable. I mean, in business as well. I mean, I'm very passionate about, there's plenty of functionality and products within our product that were born over a pizza or a dinner, or this is a great idea, and then it comes out. And I think having a well laid out strategy, it helps. So I think there's a mix of enthusiasm, which needs to be reconciled with strategy and organization. I think I've discovered that in my own business, that sometimes I need to tame myself. And get too excited about stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be very practical. It has to be well implemented. So ideas are great. It's all about how they're executed.
Yes, idea I think is 10%. 90% is execution.
Well, and that's where ubiquity and technicians never forgive. If a technician had a hard drive fail on them in 2006, they will remember it, and they'll never buy that brand again in 2025. And Ubiquity had a few missteps that kind of caused them some they did a hard lesson when they started something and then dropped it. They started something and dropped it. They did it a couple times, and it left technicians going, I'll never use that company again. I mean, Google's like the only company that's big that's able to survive, and the Google graveyard is my favorite joke. Like, Google's the only company I know that can survive because everyone loves Gmail and Google so much that they have a graveyard of products they started and burned people on, because everyone's angry. I mean, there's so many variations of the Google graveyard because it's like a running joke. Every time Google buys something, so when are you going to kill it? 6 months, a year? The only thing you don't kill is Gmail and search. Anything else, well, and YouTube, I guess. Everything else is kind of a crapshoot how long they'll have it for. But the misstepping some of these companies have from idea to execution is really it's hard, because once you sour the technical market, nerds are picky. We hold grudges on things. Once we had a bad experience with your product, you could paint me a path of gold with it with the next version. I won't go down your path because you burned me.
It
is funny. It's the lessons learned in the tech market, I think.
Well, we are, and again, I mean, we are that size of company where it's not. We're like 100 people now, so it's not too small that you're always tinkering with things, but it's either also not too big that you can still afford doing something like a little bit unconventional, out of the box, or fun. So at least I'm still enjoying this moment where we still try tinkering with things. Sometimes we don't get it right, but
if you get it right all the time, you're not innovating hard enough.
It's also interesting. I mean, it's been quite an interesting experience how, we have 400,000 people that we sell into 190 countries, and the business is really, and it still is. I mean, the majority of our revenues come online, and so you need to speak with people through the product, and sometimes it's easy to be misunderstood, and so it's fascinating sometimes how you mean to deliver something, and people, you think A and people read B and then react with C, and I'm like, what just happened there? It's like, what did I do wrong? So it's quite interesting.
Can you let us in on maybe some upcoming innovation you guys have, some ways you're going, some things you're hoping that maybe you got the idea, but the engineering is still coming? What are some of the features you want to, or if you had a greenfield, you had here's an unlimited budget.
So, I mean, to be honest with you, first of all, we're reducing friction. I realized that we sometimes, there's a lot of Italians in the company, and in Italy, you're like, there's so much bureaucracy and so much the rules and this and that, and at times we complicate our product. So I'm trying to reduce friction, and in fact, probably my marketing people are going to kill me for saying this, but we're even looking at options where people can use a significant part of the product without actually paying anything, so that it becomes more of a reference play. So we're looking at always innovations in our business model in how we can bring more people in. I'm super excited, frankly. I know everybody is, but I am super excited about AI because I think it makes productivity for everybody, for us internally as a company, for me as an individual, but also for customers. So we're trying to open up a space where people can actually leverage this in answering, because there's so much data that we know about the network and surroundings and history, that the capability of processing that data with the new 1 or 3 models and the reasoning is such that you can really get a lot of value out of it. So, I mean, so there's definitely a space around AI that it's probably a little bit more medium term. So hopefully towards the second half of the year. But we're playing it quite a bit on our side. There's a lot of usability enhancement, again, around saving time, like repetitive tasks that you're doing 100 times that you shouldn't do 0 times. So it's so it's some of the areas where we're working on. But definitely the getting smarter has a lot to do with it, because I think it helps.
I think the best use cases for AI often are when they're first well prompted, but it takes your level 3 technicians, your higher end, already have a lot of skills technicians. I believe AI enhances them a lot more. My always problem with the people hyping it is they try to claim you can replace your level 1 people, and it rarely works out that way. It doesn't seem to be a good replacement. But as far as a, someone, I was building some stuff with Docker the other day, and AI helped me solve a problem. It actually found a typo I had, but still, it was you spend a few too many minutes going, why won't this? Oh, I got a typo in line 36. But just having it create some of this stuff, because the level 1 tech doesn't always know how. They're like, this is just a lot of data, and they're like, okay, I see the data. Please group together this and this and this in this way, and AI can go, oh, great. I can do that.
But it's hugely empowering. I mean, I don't think it's about replacement of people. Is the empowerment that you can get. And I mean, I have my son is actually doing it. He's 21, is doing an internship with us, and I gave him the whole bunch of data and in database, and to write SQL queries, and it's amazing actually seeing these kids that they just have a very different relationship with AI, because I'm old, but even if you're 25, you're 30. You're still skeptic, and you're treating it like with a little skepticism. And he's talking to this thing, and he's trusting it. So he had to solve some SQL queries. He spent a day or 2 days kind of understanding what SQL is and how to spell it. And then he started talking. And I mean, I'm telling you, we're doing some pretty amazing things after not even a week on our ability to query databases and get complex searches going out of a pretty significant set of data, and that's hugely empowering. I think there's a lot that can happen.
Yeah, I'm terrible with SQL, and but AI's not. So same thing with regex. I was parsing log files. Turns out AI is amazing at regex, and I was like, I just dropped in some of the logs. Like, this is the log format. Give me a regex string to pull. I said I need something out of this and this and this, and I want it outputted in this format. It wrote me a little sed awk egex, and it's like, cool, perfect. And I added it to what I was doing, and it's like it solved my problem. Could I have eventually? What I used to do is just beat my head against the wall with that online website that's like a regex writer that I keep putting it parses it. It's a really cool website I used to use all the time. It's like, this is so much easier. I just drop it in AI, it gives me the thing. Well, I also used to use my friend Phil, because his license plate on his car is sed awk. The dude speaks it as a language, but he's not always available. Sometimes he's busy with his job, and I can't just ask Phil, can you parse this for me? AI is like my new Phil.
Yeah, but I think in scripting, I think programming language, it's still, there's a bit to go. But I mean, in scripting, these new reasoning models, I think the O3 that just came out.
Yeah.
I mean, the quality of stuff they can get to produce, it's impressive. So that, and again, that doesn't substitute anybody,
no,
at least yet.
It really enhances.
But it does really empower, because you get so much more powerful in what somebody can achieve, and so hopefully there's a lot more productivity coming out. Everybody.
Yeah. Like I say, it takes your people who, because I know I need to use regex. The level 1 tech may not have known that's the best solution for this. I'm like, oh, sed awk would solve this problem. I know I can't write sed awk, but I know it would solve the problem. So AI becomes my sed awk companion for that. And that's where I think it's really got the biggest enhancement. Your son goes from what SQL to, hey, look at this in 2 days. That's where AI is powerful.
Yeah. And it's probably trickier for junior people, I think, because on the experience pays, because you still need to think about how to solve, in defining the problem, not even how to solve it. Actually, you need to have a good understanding of the problem you're trying to solve, and the understanding comes from experience. And so if you're new, well, on one hand, you're like, okay, I'll try anything, so that you get the right attitude. But on the other hand, being able to structure a problem, I think in the age of AI is the most important thing possible. So it changes a bit the game. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we're just about at the top of the hour here. Any final things you want to share with us? Some events you got going on where we can learn a little more?
Yes, we're actually, it's a busy month. I mean, as I said, I'm at ISE in Barcelona right now. I believe we are in MSP Expo next week. Coming, we're going to be at Kaseya event later in I think it's April.
In Europe?
And no, we're doing the one I found the one in the US a little more fun than the one in Europe.
Okay. All right. I have not my goal is to go do some of the European events. I've been to all the US ones, but now I got to do some European ones. So
I would stick with the US ones.
Okay. The US ones are more fun. Got it.
Yeah, they're more fun.
Come over here for the party.
Yeah. And I believe we're going to MSP Geek.
Oh, awesome. I'll be there.
So yeah, and I think we actually have a network monitoring event with you later in the month.
Okay, yeah, I think so. I think that's on there too. I see Matt threw a video of all the list of things. So
yeah, so now we've been keeping busy. Said we've been running it's an online business. We're trying to be as effective as we can and deliver value as much as we can. Which, if you have, to do that at scale, online plays a big part. But we still have a quite significant part of the business that we run on it's made of relationships on a one-to-one basis. So we've been, in fact, jacking up our presence at trade shows. It's fun to meet the clients, to be honest with you. It's really a satisfaction when you, when you meet a happy client, it really it pays off. It's like, okay,
I love that you're the one going
right.
to the events as well. That's really, it means something, because I think too many times some of the people that are founders and things, that they get too disconnected from it. I heard you hear with Thinks Canary, they make the little canary boxes, the canary tokens. Harun Mir was talking about that he still shows up at the trade shows. He still goes to the booth. And he says, that's where I learn the most. I want to hear from my clients. I want to stand on the trade show floor. He goes, I'm not too big for that. I'll never be too big for that. He goes, if I'm too big for that, I shouldn't be running this company. He was doing an interview, and I'm like, yeah, I've talked to Harun a couple of times. Super nice guy. But I kind of believe that. I see some of the other companies in cybersecurity, Huntress, I'm friends with them, and you'll see the CEO Huntress. I mean, they're worth 1.6 billion. They've reached the unicorn status, and you'll still see Kyle hanging out at shaking hands and talking to people, very involved, very, more hands-on than his personal assistant wishes he was. But I think that's what makes a good company. You're still there. You're at the trade shows. You're like, I'm going to be there. I'm going to be at MSP Geek. I know you can't be at all of them, as there's a company to run, but I think it's great that you're still involved with the community and getting some direct feedback from the customers.
Yeah, but I think it's super important. I mean, in fact, I think everybody in my company hates that I'm going to this thing, because I always come back with all these ideas like, oh, we should do this. So I was like, oh, did you hear about that? And like, this guy complained about this. He's right. But both from getting, the feedback, bad or good or whatever, that it may be. But also, I think there's a lot around frankly, just the, other vendor community and the community in general. I think, in the digital era where we're all on Teams and Zoom and all this other stuff, and we're never in person, I think being able to network actually, I think it's super powerful. I mean, I think apart from being extremely energizing, because you can get back from these events thinking it's like, oh, wow, like I got this idea, I got that idea, but I got too many ideas. I mean, unfortunately, companies are made not only of ideas, but also of execution. So,
ideas and execution. It starts with ideas.
It starts with ideas. So, no, but
this has been great. All right. Well, thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Thanks for hosting me.
This is a great talk. Appreciate it. Glad we have all the links. We have links in the description for things in those events for people that want to land on them, or, MSP Geek. You can just Google that one and find it too.
Yes, I hear it's pretty cool.
It's pretty cool. Fun. A lot of nerds there. So I'm in my happy place there.
Excellent. Well, thank you again.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, everyone, for joining.